What's up, everybody? This is Zadi with Gate 7 International, and it is deep dive season. It is January. Well, sorry, it is technically December at the time of recording, heading into the January transfer window of 2024. Excited, but also not excited at the same time to do all of these scouting reports. And tonight we have our very first one. But before we get into all that, don't forget, guys, to like and subscribe if you don't already. Every engagement, whether it's a like, whether it's you subscribing, doesn't matter. Comments, all of it helps with the algorithm. And it helps us find more red and white fans. So help us continue to grow the community. And you can also support us on Patreon. Patreon members get to see the scouting reports before the player is announced. As you guys know, we publish all of the scouting reports for everybody on our YouTube channel once the player has been announced. But if you're part of the Patreon community, you get early access to those reports. So check us out, support us there, and you can get early access to these videos. Now, without further ado, let's go and talk about the new forward that is signing on loan from FC Porto for Olympiacos, Fran Navarro, or as he's known by his full name, Francisco Jose Navarro Aliaga. 25-year-old Spanish center forward. He's actually turning 26 in February, measuring in at 5 foot 10 inches, 179 centimeters, or 72 kilogram, which is about 158 pounds. Navarro started out in the Valencia Academy before making his move to Gil Vicente, and that's where he attracted the interest of Porto. His profile, for me, is that of a poacher, prototypical poacher profile here, guys. Pretty good with his back to the goal, not huge or super physical, but overall, we are looking at a pretty competent player. Now, let's get started and take a look at some of the data here. And we're going to get started, as we always do, with the percentile chart. Now, for those of you that don't remember, if this is your first time tuning into a deep dive, this chart is a measure of various data points, and we compare Navarro's performance in this respect. This is all per 90 minutes, and it's compared to every other forward in Portugal. So we took every forward that played at least 500 minutes when he was at Gil Vicente, because this past season he hasn't played much for Porto at all. So we took it from last season and we compared it to everybody that was around. And looking at his goal creation, not very physical player, not incredible in the air, but he manages to find himself in so many scoring positions. It's remarkable. Scored plenty of goals from service in the wide area, but also he gets his fair share of scrappy goals. And those scrappy goals, I'm talking about rebounds or loose balls that are in the penalty area. That's what I mean by that. Not so much a threat on set pieces unless he's getting that rebound. So don't look for him to do a lot of stuff in the air. He's not really so good at winning those balls. He's not such a big body, but he's remarkably efficient with any of these shot opportunities that he's getting, especially considering that Gil Vicente is not exactly a possession dominant team. Above average touch volume and goal conversion, we're talking about in the penalty area here, with excellent shot accuracy. Don't expect a player that's going to take a defender one-on-one in these scenarios, because he's not like that. He'll probably cut the ball inside or outside just to make space for a shot, but he's not going to be dribbling on defenders 1v1. So no, don't expect any El Arabi level trickery, or nearly as often. Quality shot placement overall, decent power. Sweet spots are at the center top part of the penalty area or right over the penalty spot. So he finds himself a lot of opportunities there. He's very, very deadly. Crafty runs that he makes in stride lead to very great openings for him, which he does take advantage of. When you're watching him as play is building up and how he's moving around, he's very difficult for center backs to kind of stay on top of. And that's how he finds himself in so many great scoring positions. It's not because he's pushing them around or he's very physical. In fact, it's quite the opposite. At 5'10", 158 pounds, he's not an imposing guy, but he's crafty and he finds himself in a lot of these open positions. And another important piece that you can look into the data here, a very important piece of data to note, is that he is still underperforming when he's at Gil Vicente. He is underperforming relative to his XG, which is remarkable because there's still room for improvement here. So It's definitely something that you want to see at least moving forward because he's making a lot of opportunities, and although he is pretty good at converting these opportunities, there's still more we can get out of him. Assist wise, there's really not much to speak of, or shot creations outside of the shots that he's getting himself. Any production he has in that regard is usually a quick one touch drop off inside the penalty area or kind of like just inside the front of that penalty box. He's not usually too pivotal in helping in the creation of those opportunities. He's the outlet for those shot opportunities. Now, looking over at build up and possession, it's not quite as tasty as some of the goal creation stats we were looking at were. In fact, he's hardly involved in build up at all. You'll see him connect with 1-2 touch pass combinations here or there, but it wasn't unusual for him to go in a full 90 minutes and complete less than 10 passes. Whether it was at Porto, whether it was at Gil Vicente, it's just not, he's not on the ball that much. I can imagine, especially in games when things are tight and we're looking kind of for some inspiration, that fans would get easily frustrated when this guy is disappearing. So, for context, Gil Vicente was not commanding possession, and in his brief minutes at Porto, we did see him on the ball a little bit more and get involved, but still, all in all, this lack of multidimensional capability is probably the reason why he didn't get along super well at Porto and he wasn't playing as much. You can see in the data here, build up wise, there's really nothing good to speak of from a top down perspective here. Pass accuracy is pretty solid, but he doesn't take a lot of risks. I mean, if he's playing the ball, he's playing it laterally, sometimes a back pass or, in a give and go in that respect. But he's not progressing the ball meaningfully. He's not carrying, whether it's by pass or by carrying the ball forward. He's not a player you can look at which will take the game in his own hands and go at defenders. His contribution and buildup will be here and there, like I said, with some layoffs, simple plays, simple balls between the 5 to 10 meter range, but nothing incredible in buildup. And you shouldn't expect him to really be a key figure, or somebody that can get along really well, like Jovetic, who can be immense in buildup. It can have some lovely balls. This is not that type of player. Defensively, he's also not an incredible ball winner. He's capable of defending in a unit. At Gil Vicente, he wasn't exactly a bulldog in the press, but he did get back to help. I don't foresee him having the same work ethic or hustle as Ayub El Kabi, but in most matches where we are the dominant force in position, that's not really what we're looking for. In derby matches or matches against better competition, Carvajal will have us in a more conservative defensive shape. We've already seen that back five materialize against Bachka Topola, and even in the matches before the break against the not so good competition of Greece, we've seen when we're not on the ball, we've seen that back five kind of assemble itself. So without a high press, and as long as he's going to stick in the defensive shape behind the ball that we see, that's really all we need from him, to be fair. So we're not going to be really, I mean, in general, when it comes to strikers, I always tell you guys that we're not expecting these guys to be major ball winners. We want effort. And in the case of El Kabi, we want to see somebody that's going to press pretty well and do that work so that somebody else can clean it up. In this case, we know Carvajal doesn't have a full court press. So if this guy's going to stay in the structure and he's going to help us in that defensive mold, that's all we want out of him when it comes to the defensive aspects of things. So for those of you that don't remember, or maybe it's your first time here, after going through some of the general statistics and getting a look at his profile, the next thing that we like to do is we like to discuss a comparison. In this case, we are going to look at him and Ayub El Kabi. We're going to do this comparison. And I always have to start with a disclaimer with these radar plots because everybody, it always happens, maybe one person here and there, they kind of take the data the wrong way. These radar plots are not here to tell us that one player is bad and one player is not. They're just here to help us compare data points and assist in a viewpoint in the difference of play styles. And in this case, when we're looking at El Kabi, I chose El Capi because he's going away to AFCON, and he's a player that has frustrated a lot of fans. Going into the second half of the season, we need a striker that is somewhat different than what we have and who will help us put away more of these opportunities that we've just absolutely wasted, especially ones that El Cabi himself has wasted. So, at first glance, we see some very similar and close data points on the offensive side, the goal creation side of things. This is pretty encouraging. Maybe some of you look at it and say, "Oh, but El Cabi's already a frustrating character. How can this guy be good if he's looking the same?" There's two reasons for that. First, Navarro was playing in Portugal, which is a better league. Second, his data is very similar to El Cabi while playing for a team like Gil Vicente, which is not on the ball as much as Olympiacos. Less volume in general compared to Olympiacos. So if he is maintaining a similar level of production to Ayub El Cabi in this respect, then that's a pretty good sign. He also has a much higher shot accuracy than Alcabi does, and even though he's extremely efficient with his chances, he's underperforming his XG compared to Alcabi, who's kind of right where he should be relative to his XG. So, while I believe Alcabi is valuable in pressing and behind the ball movement, Navarro won the ball more than he has if we're looking at the press in that respect. So, by that same token, I do expect to see an increase in these data points with Navarro, given the fact that he's going to see the ball more with Olympiacos. So it would make sense that if he maintains the efficiency that he had over at Gil Vicente, that he should probably end up outshining El Cabi. Now, this brings us to the verdict. We've looked at the data. We've had a little comparison to El Cabi. So, what is the outlook on the player? Now, this Navarro loan is a bit awkward for me. I admit that this is the type of striker that we need. We need a poacher. I have my worries though. So let's be honest. I mean, financially, it's low risk. It's a 250K fee, buyout of 7.5 million. We're never going to activate that. So this is just a guy that we're going to bring in for 6 months. Look at it that way. But it's another loan and another problem that we still have to fix this summer. But I'm not going to get into that. This is about the player. So we're going to digress and just focus on the player here. This transfer, the way I see it, it's either going to be a stroke of genius or it is going to be a disaster. There's no middle ground. It's going to be one or the other. If his efficiency carries over, if Fran Navarro's efficiency from Gil Vicente can carry over to Olympiacos, he will score plenty of goals. And Carvajal, Pedro Alves, the two of them will look like geniuses. If his scoring boots are left in Portugal and he's slow to get started, it just magnifies the failure. I'll elaborate on that in a second. The context for this move, what we've seen with Carvajal and how he likes to play that wide play in the final third, playing a lot of crosses into the penalty area, a lot of balls from the wide areas that I brought up to you guys in that analysis. We've already seen that wide play in the final third is the preference of Carvajal. So, context-wise, it makes sense to bring a player like this in who is efficient and very good at getting these balls and finishing these balls that are coming from these wide areas. But if he's slow to get scoring, his lack of contribution in other facets of play, like build up and the defensive side of things, will make people just as frustrated with him as we are with El Gabi and as we were with Hassan. Because if he can't assist in build up, if he's not scoring, there's no use. This is a player, another one, that is only going to be useful insofar as he is scoring goals. That's the value proposition. So, all of this being said, I still give this a thumbs up. I still give this transfer a thumbs up. I'm still positive on it for a couple of reasons. One, in the past, I shared data with you all that Olympiacos has the second most shot opportunities created in the Super League, but we are the second worst in terms of efficiency converting those shots, not just on goal, but on target, period, not just as goals. We have the largest percentage of shots outside of the penalty area and the lowest shot quality if we're measuring it by XG per shot. We have the lowest among the top 5 clubs and the lowest in the top, we'll say like the mid to top tier. It's not good. So bringing in a player who's not only incredibly efficient, but still underperforming his XG is about as promising as it gets context wise for this type of scenario. So we'll see what the guy can do and if he can contribute where El Kabi has lacked. It is a risk because he is a poacher, which means if we're bringing in a poacher, we're just looking for the guy to score goals. And if that's what we're bringing him for and he can do it, it is a win. So this is the value proposition of the player. This is the context for with which he can succeed, and we just have to see where it goes. So, thank you guys for tuning in to yet another deep dive. I hope you found this information informative. I hope you got more insight on the player that you didn't have before. That's always the goal with these things. More signings are coming, more scouting reports are follow, and it looks like I have a very busy January ahead of me. So I hope you enjoyed it. This is the first of what looks like will be many scouting reports to come for the month of January. Maybe I'll sleep, maybe I don't. Who knows? But until next time, this is Gates International by the fans for the fans.